lymphatic system, which is the body's defense. But part of the lymphatic system is about elimination.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's where you eliminate these toxins by way of the flush, as we call it, you know, or by eating different types of fiber on a regular basis.
That is why if you got cancer in your lymphatic system, so what I'm saying, the part of your defense is compromised with a disease.
Yeah.
So normally lymphatic, the conventional medicine, it's one of the most difficult to treat because it's in your defense system. And this woman overcome it without going to them. So there is a thing about body science versus food science. And that's one of the subjects I cover. Because I mentioned earlier that we weren't born with an instruction manual. So like, I remember not so long ago I was in Wilton and I saw some berries on a tree. Never seen them before. And I'm thinking, they look enticing. I am not putting them in my mouth. I had to verify that they can be eaten. I saw one day, I've been watching them for months. One day I saw two people picking them up and eating them. And I spoke to him, I said, this can eat? He said, yeah. It's all right. I took a few and I took them home. Right? So the point is, we eat based on taste. We don't have any idea of what is compatible to the human body. What is it that makes it well? I mentioned earlier that we need to learn human biology as a compulsory subject, because that is killing us. The ignorance that we have as to how the body really operates. It makes us more vulnerable to people who want to sell us ideas. So if you understand how the human body works, then you're going to understand what is good for it and what is not good for it. And what you find is that the body has an intelligence of its own. And I used to say to people, the body is more intelligent than the mind. That makes sense? The body is more intelligent than the mind, yes? You go to a party and you decide to eat some chicken, you eat some ice cream, you knock back to some alcohol, and then later on you eat some, cheesecake, and at some point you're having a good time. Your mind says, yeah, this is the way. Next thing you know, you're hugging up the toilet having a good time. And the body says, listen, are you crazy? So the body reacts and it comes into defense mode and you vomit. That's the intelligent body saying, listen, what you're doing is stupidness. So the body gives you say, look, your idea, the body doesn't care about your opinion. So we can look at a certain behavior pattern and say, can we correlate a certain behavior pattern with a certain result? All right? And if we can link it, well, most of us can't make a link between what we put in our mouth and what the outcome is. And nobody has taught us to make a link between the two things. It's only certain people who have made a study of it. For example, they say to you, one item causes multiple diseases. What? Sugar. One item, sugar, causes multiple diseases. And there's a point in my book about how it can contribute to cancer. So we live in a time where we need to be educated in a holistic manner. And we only can volunteer for that, because the system is not there to teach you in that way. For you to know, first, have an idea how the body works. Second, how nutrition works in terms of the body, and how the two come together in some form of compatibility. Now, one of the questions I have in my book is, what is the ideal human diet? And that's been a debate for centuries. What should human beings eat? And you go back, it changed from generation to generation in Western culture. Oh, they say hearty breakfast. The first meal should be, breakfast is the most important meal. And I mean, when I just come to this country, I had that philosophy. I just tank up in the morning, kippers and eggs and toast. I'm loaded. And that's what I was, that's my idea. You can't leave your house hungry. And the idea that I could just eat some fruits or in the morning was like, no, you're crazy. I can't do that. I need something to hold me. I need something, what we call solid food. So our idea of solid food is something that takes long to digest. You eat something and all day long, it's over you. What you don't understand is that it's hard to digest because your body's having a problem with it, to break it down. And then you don't know what nutrition is in terms of what is it the body needs. So what you end up with, the situation that we have where we get tired after we've eaten?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
You all familiar with that one?
Yeah.
Back home we call it niggeritis. You heard that word?
Oh, gosh.
But anyway, food's supposed to give you energy, and we never stop to think that, I wasn't tired before I ate, how comes I'm tired now? What happened? Where did the energy go?
Well, it takes energy to digest the food.
Exactly. So something has happened, but hear what? It's just to do with incorrect combination of foods. Now, if you change those combinations, you don't get the same experience, even if you full your stomach. These are the simple sciences about the body that we need to learn, which I make a point in documenting in the book.
Okay, sorry, can I, yes?
Okay, do you want to make your point and then I'll ask my question?
Well, I'm going to be rather long-winded.
Okay, right. So what I want
That's
to
a
ask
warning.
quite a few questions. Yeah. The first question is, after when we do our research, we know how important diet is, how important our food and nutrition is. Why do you think that it's so difficult, or the doctors themselves find it so difficult to make that connection? Because whenever you go to the doctor, you say, you know, you are the one suggesting maybe something. They say, no, it's not that. Even though there are studies. They do nutrition in universities and colleges and stuff, but they don't want to say that there is an issue with what you're eating. What you're eating can affect how you are. That's my first issue.
Okay.
Can I answer that first?
Okay. Yeah. Go on.
And when you're finished, I'll answer it for you again.
Again, you know.
Okay. Well, what I found out is that doctors, it's a long journey it's a very long thing to be a doctor. And nutrition is an optional subject. And only 5% of them, according to the statistics, actually take up the subject of nutrition. So the vast majority of doctors never studied it. So they can't tell you something that they have no knowledge of. So the doctor who I quoted, who I explained that, he was in the system and he switched. He's now a naturopath. And he said, listen, we didn't study nutrition. So you go to your doctor and he say, well, you ask him, you take him and say, oh, is it okay to take this vitamin? I must say, well, no. He's saying that, in effect, you should say, I don't know, because he never studied it. And you're not going to recommend what you don't study and what you don't fully understand.
I'll add to that. Gentleman's absolutely right. A couple of years ago, long story short, I had diabetes. And I walked into hospital in Woolwich, where I met a little white guy, doctor, and looking back, in one conversation, he cured my diabetes. Because as the man said, he had actually studied the topic, he studied nutrition, more importantly, he studied diabetes in black people. Yeah. So all the conversation about niggeritis, the word you use, he called it a carb coma. We had the whole conversation. The doctors are general practitioners. The people you see on the front line, they're general practitioners. So it's like taking your Merc to a BMW dealer. He knows it's a car, but that's all he knows. Yeah? We have to start to treat our bodies like specialist units that require specialist care.
Very valid point. And we're on the subject of diabetes, okay, which resonates with me tremendously, because I cured myself of diabetes 10 years ago. Okay? My diabetic marker has always been 3. And I, every year, go and have an MOT, which is on my website. If you go on the website and go in the archives, you find it all written in there in different articles.
What's the website?
blackhealth.co.uk. Okay? Go in the archives and you'll see the story there. It's called, Have You Had Your MOT Yet? And I went to my doctor to have my MOT, did a urine test, and he came out, and he was looking rather grim and shaking his head. And he looked at me and says, Mr. Stevenson, I'm going to send you away for a glucose tolerance test because I think you're diabetic. And I was a bit heavier than I am now, okay? Went away, had a glucose tolerance test, and my result came back at 11 rather than, 6. So he said, I've got to classify you as diabetic. And then he looked at me, and I have a most understanding doctor, 20 years younger than me, from Nigeria, okay? And I have an excellent rapport with him. I get half an hour when I go to see him, 10 minutes about my health, and the rest of the time we're talking about politics and what's happening in the world and God knows what else, okay? And he looked at me and he says, I know you very well. You're not going to take any tablets, are you? And I said, too right. Okay, see you in 6 months' time. I went home, and about all the literature and stuff that I've got, there was one book that said, Reverse Diabetes Now, written by a doctor who didn't believe totally in mainstream, okay? And I read it from cover to cover, and the doctor was making a very salient point. Most of these degenerative sicknesses have started manifesting themselves within the last 50 years, okay? Why do you think that is? And he pointed the finger very squarely at diet, especially dairy products, pumped full of antibiotics and hormones and estrogen and God knows what else. And they put a lot of fat in your cells so that, you know, the insulin and the glucose can't get into your cells to energize them. And he came up with a very simple solution. For 21 days, no dairy products whatsoever. None. Okay? No meat, no cheese, no nothing dairy. You can eat complex carbohydrates, like the ones we grew up on in the Caribbean. Your yam, your sweet potato, your plantain, rice and peas, all of that. But in addition to that, add half a teaspoon of cinnamon and half a teaspoon, well, I went on and added half a teaspoon of fenugreek. Fenugreek, okay? In the Indian shop, you see it under the name of methi. Okay. And I did that, went back 6 months later, had another glucose tolerance test, and my diabetes was 5. And that's the way it's been ever since. I eat some dairy now again, but they will never say that diabetes has been cured. They'll say it's under control or in remission or something like that, but they will never say it's cured, okay? But I am telling you about my personal experience with diabetes. And I have told this story to a lot of people over the last 4, 5, 6 years, and people are still phoning me up today saying to me, thanks, it's worked. I have a friend in New Addington, her diabetes was all over the place, 13, 14, you know, couldn't get it down, and I told her to do it. And I made a presentation in Thornton Heath, and she turned up with her book, and she and her husband laughing, you know. I said, what's up? They didn't believe me when I told them about the cinnamon and the fenugreek, but here's the evidence. My mark is 4, and it's stable, she says. And that's the kind of reports I get.
Hate to be competitive.
Sorry?
I hate to be competitive.
Lies.
But you know what? When I went and did my test, I was off the scale.
Good grief.
Couldn't measure it.
So you were looking at something coming close to amputation or something
Off
like
the
that?
scale. And this white guy, he said exactly what you said. He said a lot of people say you can't cure diabetes, but they are incorrect. He said if it is caught correctly and you do what I tell you, you will live to see your grandchildren. If you do not, you knew what size I was before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. If you do not, you will die.
But one of the points Devon was making earlier, right, and I wanted to make a comment about that point, is that these degenerative sicknesses don't just happen overnight. It's a long process. And you mentioned sugar, Devon. I talk about the 3 thieves of good health, okay, in my presentations on well-being. And I'll tell you what they are, and I hope I get a chance to show you in detail later on. 3 thieves of good health. The first one is called glycation, which has to do with sugars, and also how you cook food. Frying, grilling, and barbecuing, the worst ways to cook food, okay? So that's glycation. The other one is oxidation, okay? How your body reacts to oxidative stress from free radicals, etc., etc., etc. In human beings, we call it the aging process, which you can't stop, but you can slow down. And your foods can do that. And the most insidious one of all is inflammation, which is a good thing. Yes, when you get cut, you know, your hand is inflamed, that's fine. But this is the chronic, that's called acute inflammation. But the chronic one, where you get a little pain and you ignore it, yes, And this is undermining your system over a long period of time, and then suddenly, bingo, manifests itself in the form of cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, strokes, what have you.
Nail on the head.
Okay? And those are the three things that I point out all the time. Get to the root cause of what is causing the sickness, and treat diabetes and Alzheimer's and all of those as symptoms rather than the root cause. Because the root cause of these the degenerative sicknesses is those three things: glycation, oxidation, and inflammation. And I even tell you what foods you should eat to reduce inflammation in your body. And remember, your stomach here is your second brain, okay? Because there's a big nerve that runs from your brain to your stomach called the vagus nerve. And your stomach communicates with your brain. So whatever you're putting in here, yes, affects your mood, it affects everything that goes on up here. So this doesn't control this. It is this that controls this.
I know some people who've got their stomach as their first brain.
Well, that may not be such a bad thing, okay? And you see, you know, everybody talks about probiotics in this day and age. You've heard of probiotics? What is probiotics? Any idea?
No.
It is a simple name for the good bacteria in your gut. And that good bacteria can only flourish over the bad bacteria by the quality of the nutrition you put in your mouth, what you eat. Okay? So if you eat alkalizing foods, you feed the good bacteria in your gut, and you starve the bad bacteria. Okay? And that's where your good health will come from.
And give some examples of the food that can feed them.
Shall I?
Oh, we're going to do the presentation later? Okay, we'll have that later.
Sorry, because I can't
Sorry,
to the end, I just want to know, do you have a book?
I don't have a book.
You do, man.
What am I doing? Would you like to ghostwrite it for me?
I can't write. I just eat.
He's got a website.
On it.
May I just ask you a question? Why do you think you got diabetes?
Why? Oh, because after I left Jamaica, I continued to demolish the amount of food that I used to, but I stopped all the sporting activities. So when Naya knew me, the day I walked into my doctor's office, I weighed just about 27 stone. That's my theory. That's what I'm going to go with. So I had the same input of food. I wasn't in the military anymore. I wasn't on the athletics team anymore. I didn't have to walk 9 miles home from a party on a Saturday night. That's what we did. We didn't have cars.
That's it, yeah.
So we walked home. Suddenly I lived in the UK, where I stepped out my door, drove my car to work, sat down behind my desk. I'm a project manager, did nothing, but I ate exactly the same.
If not
No one
more.
around me even stopped to think. I was fortunate. I always met women who thought, oh, you're a big man, that's nice. Never, at no point. My mom said, oh, you look healthy.
That's typical.
It never occurred to me until the doctor said to me, you're going to die. Do you have a son? I said, yes. He said, do you want to see your grandchildren? I said, yes. He said, follow me.
So throughout the journey of when you became diabetic, was there no
Signed?
signs, not just the physical signs? I'm just trying to find out from you beyond that. Was there anything that you relate?
I'm an engineer, so for me everything sort of is factual. So yes, there were signs, which my doctor at the time was able to sit me down and say, did this happen? Oh yeah, God, yeah. Example, one morning I woke up and I couldn't read what was on that sign. Just like that. Just one morning, I couldn't read it. What this gentleman here at the end mentioned, almost every single meal meant sleep. Yeah. I'd fall asleep at stoplights.
So did your body talk to you?
Oh, it was shouting.
Did,
It was shouting, but I could get up and I could swim 2K.
But you weren't listening to your body.
Oh no, I didn't. I wasn't listening. So I would do the BT swimathon happily. I rode to Brighton happily. Still 26.
Sorry, what did your
Stop.
doctor say to you when you told him that you were experiencing these symptoms?
No. I didn't even go to my doctor when I was. That's my point. I wasn't listening at all because I justified everything by saying, "Oh, but I can cycle 28 miles." So I was ignoring all of that. So my doctors never ever knew until the day I woke up one morning and I realized it was 2 o'clock, blinked, and it was 4 o'clock, Christmas Eve. Couldn't get the bad taste out of my mouth, and I just kept nodding off. And I went to the doctor on Christmas Eve.
was there anybody else in your family that have suffered any?
My grandfather had diabetes on my mother's side.
But we're talking here about type 2 diabetes, which
Yep.
doesn't necessarily run in families with
That's
type
right.
1.
That's right. But
Yeah.
it's the only person that I'm aware of who has any form of diabetes. My grandfather on my mom's side, and he had type 2 as well.
Right, okay. So now, what's your lifestyle like at the moment?
Wow, lifestyle now is, God forgive me, I've given up hard-boiled bread. That was difficult. I actually eat salads from time to time. So for me, it's very much high protein. I found myself sporting activities to do. I've lost, what now, near about 5 stone.
Mm-hmm. Easy.
High protein.
Yeah, high protein. Fish, mainly fish. I'm a fish person. Don't know if that's good for you or not, but
How do you cook it?
how do I cook it? You're going to hate this.
Yeah, fry.
I grill.
Oh.
I don't fry.
Oh.
I never fry. I grill everything.
Right.
Just because I can't cook really. It's easy. Put it in the oven. Comes out a couple of days later and it's cooked.
You bake it, not bread.
That's baking.
You bake it.
That's better than grilling.
Exaggerated.
What herbs or spices do you use?
I use all the stuff you mentioned, mainly, but you know, I'm Jamaican, so for me it's very short. It's some black pepper, garlic, onions, scallion, that type of stuff.
Right, okay. No cinnamon, no fenugreek.
No, this is why I'm very interested in what you were saying. Because I'm not against adding good stuff and getting rid of some more bad stuff.
Right, okay. What oil do you use when you cook?
I don't use oil at all.
Right, okay. When I make my presentation later on, and I'm looking forward to this, I hope you can stay,
I hope so too.
because it will interest you quite dramatically.
Can I ask you, because I think I get what you were saying about it coming down through lines, like from what how our parents felt, or something back in our past. So like you said that your grandfather had it, because you said that it's about food, that type of diabetes. So what our parents had eaten as well is also what our parents may have had eaten, and then we are feeding off of that in the parents' room anyway. So is that like what you was suggesting, that, you know what, historically, if we look back, and we're not talking about just looking back 400 years ago, historically was yesterday what my mother ate, or do you understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and what we are about is treating the body holistically. Not only by not treating one symptom here, one symptom there, but we're looking at it not only from a physical perspective, but from an esoteric, spiritual perspective as well. Okay? Now, latest research shows, and the Guardian newspaper in 2012 made a point of this. In 2030, and Devin and I were speaking about this earlier, a new case of Alzheimer's will be diagnosed every 4 seconds. Okay? Diabetes out of control, Parkinson's out of control, Alzheimer's out of control. One of the reasons for this is the junk that youngsters are eating today. Okay? The junk. It's not food, because food nourishes the body. What people are eating today does not nourish the body. it alkalizes the body. It gives rise to disease. And it's also been shown that if, let's say we were smoking, if you are pregnant and you are eating junk, your child is born with a predisposition to junk. That's what that child will eventually end up.
Yeah, a junkie.
Exactly. At the end of that particular article, yes, there's food and there's junk. I actually make that point. Don't let junk make you a junkie. My exact words in that article.
The point about generation from generation as well. People, I think Dr. Africa once says, the industry like to push this argument about you got a gene. Even the point of cancer gene. You know that woman Angela Jolie cut out both her breasts because of some nonsense. If she know the truth, she would sue them. Now, the genetics thing, Dr. Africa put it this way, is a way we find to blame our dead ancestors for a problem. Because when people say breast cancer run in your family, it means that you and your ancestors eat the same things. You're on the same diet as your ancestors. Because if you understand the nature of the disease, the science of the disease, your body as a defense system, you have to seriously compromise it for you to die from cancer. Understand that. This is part of the myth I want to clear up why I wrote the book. You need to understand how well your body is equipped to deal, to keep you well. And the fact that people are dying at such an unnatural age, because genetically, human beings supposed to can live to, if we say somebody lives to 100, we're not going to be shocked, right? But what is the average old age these days? The average age I see people dying now, if they get to what we call old age, is 75. That's the average. Most people seem to be dying if they get to so-called old age. But generally, one of the surprises I found, you know what the biggest cause of death of children between 1 and 14?
Cancer.
Sugar.
Cancer. The only thing that kills more children is accidents. Now, we used to associate cancer with old people. We need to understand there is a mind, body, spirit principle, yes. But everything has a science to it. Everything has its own energy. So we have to understand that. So you have to be healthy in your mind and your spirit. But understand that you just like, for example, there's a limit that you can take your spiritual and your positive mindset. For example, you can't swallow some snake venom and say, listen, my conscious mind is going to overcome this venom. For a simple, obvious reason. The venom has its own agenda. It is very concentrated on doing one thing, which is to kill you. Your mind is not that strong to focus on that thing. If your mind was that powerful in theory, you could overcome it. But most of us' mind is not that strong. So the best thing is don't take the venom. Because everything has its own agenda. Everything has its own energy and its own intention. So certain things, you put it in your body's intention to do certain things, and you are not strong enough to stop it from doing that. So you want, this is part of the knowledge we need to learn about the mind principle, the food principle, and stress can be a factor, yes.
Question two things. People talk about colon irrigation.
Colonic irrigation, yes.
I want to know whether that is actually good for you or bad for you. And the second thing is, we haven't heard talk about water yet, and also water that we buy in the shops, get from at the taps. Is that any good? So,
the colon thing is because it's part of the detox point I made, that detoxing work. If you're not healthy in your stomach, you have a problem. Because that's where you get your nutrition. Your nutrition gets absorbed in that region. So if that's not working, you survive based on nutrition. So if that area is not working well, you have a serious problem. So that is why we need to detox.
So it's a good thing to have, though.
Yes, the detox, yes. And the water point is...
Detox is different to colon irrigation.
No, detox can be a column detox. It's to say you're detoxifying your body. And toxin, especially if you eat meat, it's stored, the detox stored in the gut. The water point, that simple point about the water, your body is 70% water, so that tells you need to eat a lot of food that are rich in water. 70-30 is the ratio recommended. 70% water rich food.